Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Sister Catch Up, another hopefully wonderful podcast with my two beautiful sisters. Um, we're looking forward to our conversation today. I'm glad you can join us. Just relax, grab yourself a cup of tea, coffee, any beverage that you fancy, and yeah, just hang out with us for about an hour or so. So, I'm Sandra, the middle sister. Um, Enjoying the wonderful sunshine outside today. And yeah, hopefully I can step out later on into the wonderful sunshine. We've been having awful weather, as you know, but today the sun is shining and I'm looking forward to going out. I'll hand you over to the younger one.
Good day, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Hayley, pleased to be with you. Yes, the sun is shining today, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it can last because yesterday wasn't that way, and tomorrow may well not be that way. This afternoon may well not be that way. Hi, everybody. Over to you.
Hi. I'm Sylvia. I'm the eldest of the three sisters. Lovely to be here. The weather is absolutely stunning. And we don't usually say that about the UK or London more particularly. But yeah, it's stunning out there. I've just come back from church, and yeah, I was really hot in the car, which is so unusual. But anyway, lovely to be here. Lovely to be here. So how have you guys landed today?
Landed a little bit tired. I've had a hectic past 2 days hanging out with Hayley. We
just you two again, is it?
Look, stop taking away my role. That's my role, the middle sister. I'm the one who usually is a green eye monster, so stop it.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm the one who's been left out this time. So yeah, carry on.
Yeah, we just we had some fun out of London for the last couple of days.
Okay.
But the weather was so awful that it kind of let down the activities that we were supposed to get involved in. But we still we met some really interesting people, good friends, and we've kind of chatted and we've kind of the wrongs of the world right. So it was good. It was a really nice couple of days.
Yeah,
but I'm good.
Yeah, it really was a nice couple of days, and unfortunately, the main activity that we were supposed to do couldn't happen because of the good UK weather. I don't know. I'm sure everybody knows of the O2 building, and we were meant to climb over the O2 building. Which,
well, to be fair, I didn't know about that.
I didn't know it was an activity, but I know of the structure. And for those who don't know, it was kind of like put together. I think it was the Olympics when it was the Olympics were in London.
Okay.
And it was meant to be a temporary structure, and then it was sort of like they extended it. I think I don't know if they're going to take it down, but anyway, they have an activity that you can walk outside over the O2 building, which takes about 40 minutes or so, and by all accounts, it's a nice activity to do. Your fitness level has to be sort of like mediocre. But the views are apparently spectacular. So we're meant to do that yesterday. We got there and basically the heavens opened and there was thunder and lightning.
Oh gosh.
The company organizers, they had to postpone that particular activity. But some of the group that we were with, they did do it, but our group didn't do it. So we just went to a bar and drank champagne instead. So it's a real hardship, but
Well, I'm so pleased that I at least got a little bit of cocktail. This is what they decided to fling my way as compensation, and I got a little bottle of prosecco. So I'm not displeased with that. I'm quite happy with that.
I think you did pretty well actually. But anyway, go on.
All things. Oh, and some pastries as well. Forgot about those, which really I shouldn't be eating, but they were delightful. Absolutely delightful. But I think when I think about how I've landed, I'm thinking about what happened last week. And one of the things that happened last week was I went to see a film. One of my mates organized a little outing for us, and we went to see a film in Covent Garden, Odeon, and it was Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, okay.
Romeo and Juliet, performed by an all Jamaican cast.
Mm.
and they were all school kids,
All right.
young
Okay.
people. So it was Romeo and Juliet by some Jamaican school kids, and Shakespeare with a Jamaican twist.
Oh wow. So how
And
was it?
yeah, how was that?
It was interesting. Initially, it was like, what is this? And then as you kind of sort of warmed into it, I guess I began to fully appreciate what they were trying to do with this. They were actually trying to convey Shakespeare from a kind of Jamaican perspective, but they were still using Old English with their Jamaican accents. It was an ambitious project, and I think it's probably at the cutting edge of more to come of that sort of thing. So yeah, it was good. It was good. I mean, initially it was like, what is this? I mean, I'm not a great lover of Shakespeare, to be honest. But having said that, I remember as a young child in primary school, we did have little bits and bobs. So somehow, and we were talking about this, somehow I kind of understood the Old English. And I think probably Shakespeare has a lot to offer. But I think I would probably consume it better in that format rather than, the conventional way it's portrayed. So yeah, it was interesting.
Authors like Shakespeare, they're so unrelatable these days to most people.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
and I mean, he's held in high esteem. I can't say one way or the other whether I'm for that, but if it can become more relatable to people, and that's across the world, surely got to be a good thing, rather than having the traditional way it is presented, and it's falls under English literature, but really nobody understands it fully, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's a good idea if it's relatable.
Yeah, and lots of, and that goes a lot with sort of the European kind of education and European classics. We have our classics too, and we don't revere them enough. And if there was more balance, you could probably appreciate Shakespeare because you have, of course, a classic from your own culture that's comparable or better. But I think when the way that we were taught a lot of this was that it's the only classic, or it's the only classics that are around. And I think as you get older and you become more rebellious, you kind of think, oh no, actually. But so yeah, it was interesting. Put it that way, interesting.
Good. Would you recommend going to see it, or what's your position?
I don't necessarily think it warrants a cinema visit. But if ever it's transferred to the smaller screen, it's probably worth watching. I did like the soundtrack that went along with it. It was lovely. It really added to the atmosphere of the film.
Was it Jamaican music, or was it?
Well, it was a mix. Some of it was quite classical, and some of it was, our dancehall, bits and bobs. So yeah, it was interesting.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think you have to try things, don't you? I mean, I actually like English literature, and I loved sort of authors like why is he not coming to me? The one who wrote Hard Times, Charles Dickens stuff.
And Scrooge, Scrooge was written by Dickens, wasn't it?
I believe so. And I, just that I like you, I tuned into kind of old English. I kind of found it really easy to understand, and I can't tell you why. But I tuned into it, and I love the kind of social commentary around kind of that period. So yeah, I'm kind of into that. Well, I was when I was younger, but like you said, we've got our own kind of classics as well. And I mean, when I read C.L.R. James' book, and it's kind of left me Minty Alley.
I've yet to read that, actually. I think I better get that.
It's a wonderful book, and again, it's set in the Caribbean, and it talks about the dynamics around, the different cultures that existed within the Caribbean at that time.
Hmm.
But it's classic as well, and it's wonderfully written. So yeah, I do recommend that you read it. But yeah, I think, you know, if we can adapt things, but so it's more relatable to you know, younger people,
Mhm.
then yeah, let's go for it.
Or relatable to everyone, really, not just
Yeah.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
You
course,
know,
yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
I don't particularly attach myself to the so-called classics, you know, like Dickens or Shakespeare. So I think it's to everyone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, interestingly, another mate of mine took me to a Charles Dickens museum. I can't
Okay.
remember what part of London, but that was very interesting. He had a very interesting life. If
They
you get
all
a
do.
chance, well, yes, indeed. If you get a chance, go and read some of the gossip about him.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, when you really delve into kind of, you know, England of the past, it was filled with lots of scandal and debauchery, and you know, as much as that doesn't sort of come through so much now, but yeah, you just have to sort of scrape the surface, and lots were going on then,
Mm.
that you wouldn't really necessarily think was going on. But yeah,
I've just,
fab.
I've just downloaded Minty Alley
Oh,
on the
good.
Audibles.
Oh, you're gonna okay, great. Tell
There
me
you
what
go.
when you've listened to it.
Yeah, well, I've got quite a few to get through to, but I may just jump this one ahead.
Yeah,
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 lovely.
good. Okay.
okay. So I know that one of the things that we wanted to talk about was I mean, I know it seems like a long time ago now, but during lockdown, and how you passed your time and what kept you sane
Mm-hmm.
within that space and time, and anything that you have carried on and it has become a hobby potentially,
Mm.
you know, moving forward when we came out of lockdown and life began to move along at a similar or faster pace than it was lockdown. So I know for me, during lockdown, when things were really, then you couldn't leave your house. One of the things that I started doing was knitting.
Oh, that was so fantastic.
Yes, lots of us benefited from that.
Lots of us benefited.
Yes, I knitted up a storm, hats and scarves. Everyone in the family got one, and a few other people.
And beyond.
Yeah. But even I'm saying that, but my concentration span was such that, you know, because you can knit those quite quickly. So I'd do a project within a few hours and it was done. And then I tried to extend that and knit blankets and stuff like that. And I must admit, during the projects that took longer, my interest waned. I found it easier to do, you know, quick projects, hat and scarf, you know, out, the project is done.
Bish, bash, bosh.
Yeah, and then move on. But you guys, you want to talk about some of the things that you did during lockdown to keep you sane?
Okay, I can go next. I've always been someone who liked to walk, as you both know, but I really got into walking when lockdown happened, particularly when, and I always remember this. I always remember how quiet the streets were, and I've spoken about this before. How quiet the streets were. And I'd walk for ages. It really helped to clear my head. And then I would also listen to my audiobooks as I'm walking. I remember the other week when I was talking about James Baldwin, and I read a couple of others that were, I don't know, it just added to the atmosphere of the walking. They were fiction, a couple of them. But as I was walking, and I felt like I was on my own walking on these streets with some of these books. One of my mates, who was a member of a book club, she recommended one to me, and I really got into that. So that was the kind of thing that really helped me to cope with lockdown. And of course, my radio broadcasting, which, you know, carried on, and I was doing it from home. So all that stuff helped to keep me sane. Really did.
I can't say necessarily one particular thing kind of engaged me. You know me. I function in a way that I have to do multiple things, and you know, I dabble and then I lose interest and I move on. But I did a bit of knitting. There was one project. Sorry, I did one project that I kind of
project's completed.
You know, I just think you two, it's very rude. Can you allow me to finish, please? One project that I started was I said at the beginning of well, near the beginning of the pandemic, I was going to knit a square panel every day that we were in lockdown, and I started that with kind of enthusiasm and gusto, and
yeah,
I'm going to do this, and the interest kind of declined.
Why are you looking away?
Because I'm looking at the blanket. Actually, I've got it here beside me.
Oh, can we see it then?
You can see the top of it.
See, that's nice.
So I as the pandemic and the lockdown continued, I began to lose interest because obviously it went on for days, weeks, months, years, a year and over. But I did complete the blanket eventually. Having had lots of kind of criticism from my sisters. Oh, when are you going to finish that blanket then? So I had all the squares done, but I hadn't compiled it.
You hadn't put it together. You hadn't pulled them together.
Hadn't put it together, but I did eventually. And then I started to crochet, and crochet for me is quicker than knitting. So I could crochet. I knocked out a couple of hats. I think you got one still.
A very tight hat, yes.
Well, your head's big, isn't it? That's why it's tight. But crocheted a couple of hats in about 45 minutes no, that's a lie. 2 hours or so. It was a lot quicker than knitting. So I did that. Did some kind of personal development reading. Got really seeped into my meditation, and I think that was because of my kind of mindset at the time, and not knowing. There was a lot of uncertainty around, so I had to meditate, sort of ground me and keep me kind of focused. And I also got involved in, and although it was through work, but I volunteered to kind of, contact vulnerable people, did a bit of sort of food distribution to people who were isolated and couldn't get out, and sort of regular calls trying to keep them, motivated and engaged and so on. So yeah, that's the kind of thing I did around lockdown. No specific hobby. I did initially I was running. I did some running with my daughter, and then that kind of evolved into walking. So yeah, just trying to keep fit and so on. So that was me really over the lockdown period.
One of the things I didn't mention, and I don't know why, because I've obviously forgotten, was my journaling. I'm a really avid journaler. It just helps me to sort things out in my mind. And I used to journal every day.
Really?
Yeah. During lockdown, every morning I would get up and write a journal in prayer form. But and recently, I generally don't look back at what I've written, to be honest. But sometimes, something falls into your lap and then you open the book and then you say, oh gosh, that's where I was at that point. So I really find that really therapeutic for me. Yeah, so I did a lot of journaling.
I mean, I did some walking, and I think one of the things that I've taken forward is actually walking. And I'm not saying that I'm an avid walker or anything like that, but I wouldn't even walk to the shops. It was a big deal. Oh my God, I've got to walk to the shops. I'll jump in the car. And since lockdown and the walking, to walk to the shops and to walk, sort of like half an hour,
breeze.
Nothing. Yeah, I don't even think about it now. Whereas before, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't, to be honest. I'd jump in the car and then jump back in the car, even though you had to park your car as far away from the shops as your house was. But it would have been one of those moves.
Oh Lord.
But
oh, wonderful. You know, one of the things we've forgotten this morning, it's Father's Day today. We're actually recording this on Father's Day. And I know that, obviously that's going to date this this podcast, but I don't really care. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, grandfathers, uncles, stepfathers. Happy Father's Day.
And happy Father's Day to our father.
Oh, indeed.
Well, we're dedicating this podcast to our father anyway. Yeah. So, that's the kind of acknowledgement of who he is and what he sort of stands for, and the role he's played in our lives and continues to. So, yeah, you know, we would have mentioned it eventually, so it wasn't that we've forgotten. It's just that we didn't
Okay.
mention it at the top of the
All
program.
right. Well, I'd forgotten. Let's be fair, I'd forgotten.
You're not funny father yet.
I will after this podcast. Absolutely, I will do that.
Okay, I've done it.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
right.
you
All right. Yeah, you're going to visit, are you later?
Yes, I am actually.
Yes, so will I.
Still, just say to her, don't try and knock you off your spot. You're the golden child.
Well, yeah, she is, isn't she?
Yeah.
Well, can do no wrong. We won't go on about it, will we, sir?
I'm going to say the podcast is not about that.
Not about you, no, golden child, no.
Oh wow, wonderful. Okay, so we've touched on our sort of our COVID exploits or lockdown exploits.
Yeah.
Where do we go now?
One of the things I was able to do during COVID, and I mean, you guys know this, but we're just sharing with everyone, is that I was able to travel to the Caribbean for sustained, sort of like extended periods of time, which I've been able to do in the past. So, you know, sort of like...
and work from there too.
Yeah, work from there, which was, well, it was a hard slog, to be honest, because, you know, who wants to wake up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and start work? But, you know, I did it because the payoff or the payback was the fact that I was in the Caribbean, in Dominica, with my parents and my sisters. And, you know, so I traveled several times. And that was wonderful. It was wonderful. So much so that last year I had to take a career break and go over for 3 months, which gave me a real sense of living potentially in the Caribbean, and all that may involve. But
would you live there? Would you live there?
That's a $50 million question. How about you? You answer that first, or Sandra, you answer that.
Well, I too took an extended break in Dominica last year. So, you know, of course you two know, but I did go from October to January of this year. And I think you may, I mean, some of you may know who are listening that I did spend a couple of years living in the Caribbean in the 90s. So I have an experience of what it's like to live there. This time around, I think I'm older.
Hopefully wiser.
The jury's out on that one.
Yeah, I'm going to ignore that remark. But I think it's interesting how one changes. You know, and I think, you know, that old adage about the only thing that stays the same is taxes and death or something. But how we change. And for me, whilst when I was younger, in my 30s, say, I was very, very, well, not even in my 30s, from you know, from the first time I visited the Caribbean, I was always clear that was where I was going to end up. And I don't feel that way now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean,
feel that way now.
Yeah. Time changes, and so do women in this case. Yeah, I was there for an extended period last year as well, beginning of the last year.
Several times, weren't you?
Sorry, several.
Several times.
It kind of merges into the other, doesn't it? And I love Dominica. I love it. And it's my place where I retreat to recharge, make sense of my life, and come back and kind of with a new lease of energy. Question about whether I would live there. I mean, if I were at a stage in my life where I didn't need much to sort of stimulate me, I probably could. I could do longer periods in the Caribbean, but I couldn't. If I'm being absolutely honest with myself, I couldn't live there right now. It's Dominica. I'm not talking about the whole of the Caribbean, because there are other islands and there's different dynamics on the other islands. Dominica is a very kind of you know, slow, beautiful, you know, in terms of the landscape and so on. But there's not much to do for a woman you know, a middle-aged or woman in her, you know, approaching her later years. There's not much to
get
do.
that one under. Get that. Yeah, approaching her later years. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
So I suspect there would be a point where I would start to go stir crazy. If I sort of packed up lock, stock, and barrel and sort of, you know, positioned myself there. But I take nothing away from the environment. I think, you know, if you need peace, relaxation, you know, you need to kind of be in with your thoughts. You know, you need to eat fresh food, you know, walk, you know, enjoy nature and so on. It's the place to be. So yeah, I couldn't live there permanently, but I can certainly, you know, see myself spending longer periods of time in the Caribbean, absolutely, or Dominica.
I think I'm with you. I love the Caribbean. I love all that it stands for in terms of my life and my lineage. You know, to be in a village where your family are known, you know, your grandparents, your great grandparents, where people know your line is a comforting place to be.
Absolutely.
Are there frustrations? Yes. But then it begs the question, are there frustrations living here? Yes.
Absolutely.
You know, it depends on what you're prepared to trade off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as I'm approaching, you know, as we're getting older, I would love to have options and to sort of like spend, you know, months rather than weeks in the Caribbean. Do I want to live there permanently? At this stage, no. And I think part of the appeal of Dominica is, you know, my parents being there and them being in their space where they have childhood memories and stuff. That sits well with me as well. I don't think at this stage that I can sort of like take up lock, stock, and barrel and move to the Caribbean. Like our parents, it was always their plan, isn't it? You know, when the Windrush generation, shall we say, when they moved to the UK, it was a 5-year plan, and then you went back home having amassed whatever monies you could, and then you continued your life. I mean, this 5 years extended to 10, 15, 50, you know, plus. People didn't even return home.
Yeah.
But that was the plan. For our generation, for example, first generation UK born, I think we have to, well, I mean, if that is your desire, then yeah, great.
That's it, because it's not a have to, really. It's what you desire.
Yeah. But we can play it differently and get the best of both worlds. And that's what I hope to do.
I tried to do the walking and the reflecting when I was there. And I made that plan from, you know, before I left, that I wanted to really get to know the village where my parents are from. Because in the past, you go on shorter holidays, you're in the car, you're driving through the village, you're driving here, you're driving. So I was really quite committed to doing more walking to find these nooks and crannies that our parents always talk about. And I managed to do that. And I'm really, really glad I did, because I then didn't need all the kind of other crazy stuff that one can get into when you're on holiday for a short period of time, where you're zipping here, zipping there. I just felt that the time really stretched out. And I think, as Hayley and both you, Sandra, have been saying, I think that extended time where you can stretch time out, you can slow down, you can reflect. That's what I value about being in Dominica.
Yeah, I'm just picking up something that Hayley was talking about. And I think, you know, it's important to kind of zoom in on it a little bit. You know, the fact that we are kind of afforded certain opportunities, and we have to value that. And you know, I see myself, although I was born in the UK, I see myself as someone with dual heritage, in terms of, you know, I'm partly Dominican and I'm partly British. And I don't want to kind of relinquish that. I think my Caribbean roots is an honor, and the fact that I'm connected to the Caribbean, I'm connected to a location in the Caribbean, I'm connected to a village in the Caribbean.
It's a privilege.
And it's a privilege. And you know, I've kind of raised my children with that level of awareness as well. So, you know, when I move on, I'm hoping that they still have a connection there. And it won't be in the same way as I do, and because I don't have the same connection as, you know, our parents. But just knowing that you come from somewhere, and you know, something that we always say is that, you know, when we go back to where our parents are from, you look around and there are people who look like you.
Yeah.
And there are people and literally
look like you.
You know, and
not just the same hue, they literally look like you.
They look like you. And we're cool people, you know, we've got a look, you know, there are people who look like us in the world, you know. And I think that's when you know, when I first went to the Caribbean, that was one of the things that I was so kind of in awe of. Oh my God, you know, look at all these people who look like me and they're related to me. And then, you know, from there, you know, we've continued that connection. So yeah, I know it's going to probably look completely different in the next 50 years, you know, Dominica, but you know, that's still our connection, and I still hope that you know, we, you know, if not me, but you know, our children, my children, are still connected to Dominica.
Yeah. Important.
Lovely.
I mean, when we were talking, just jumping back quickly to when we were talking about sort of like spending periods of time in well, Dominica in our case, but anywhere in the Caribbean, because I love Barbados, I love other islands in the Caribbean as well. And you know, when I say, you know, sort of like 3 months and or 6 months there and stuff like that, for me, it's to do with the seasons here in the UK. If I can escape winter, I will. At the drop of a hat, if I can escape it, I'm going to duck out.
Well, you better go now.
I'm gonna say,
well, is that?
like that.
Because someone not start yet.
You know? And as much as I like winter at the beginning, because if we look at seasons, I mean, when at the end of summer, when it's autumn and the fall and the tree, yeah,
it's pretty.
And then even the beginning of winter, and you know, the first snowflakes that you may or may not get here in the UK, you know, it's lovely. But if that were to last for a couple of weeks, you know, I'd be good. But in the UK, it's a sustained period of time, and you know, you get fed up. Well, I get fed up. Born in March, I like spring and I like summer. They are my favorite seasons, and if I can escape autumn and winter, I will. So in terms of spending, you know, if we would say half a year one place and half a year somewhere else, the winter months wouldn't be the months that I would spend here in the UK. I think a lot of people would do that.
Yeah,
I mean, people love winter.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think love, for me, love is a bit of a word.
Strong word.
A strong word. But I think 3 months for me would be cool.
Okay.
3 months would be cool.
I love the seasons, right? And I think that's connected to fashion. I like, you know, obviously I love winter clothes. You know, I like summer. Yeah, I like the seasons. And then, you know, obviously you know, spring is beautiful when the sun's coming out and everything's starting to kind of grow and unfold and all the rest of it. But I was listening to a TikTok this week. Oh, I can't do it. I can't replicate this guy. But I was cracking up because he's a guy of Jamaican descent, and he was talking about when he came to this country, and he was saying that, you know, it's, you know, what's going on? You know, it's been raining all summer.
I've seen that one, yeah.
What's going on? And then he started to talk about, you know, okay, we don't even have proper snow because, you know, if we had proper snow, you know, you could take advantage of skiing and all the rest of it. But everything we do is kind of half-hearted. So the snow, you know, it falls, then it turns into slush or black ice. You can't do nothing with that. And then, you know, you know, the summers are just don't come. The sunshine doesn't come. Spring, it rains, and he really summed it up.
Okay.
You know, all the seasons, and then I started thinking he's absolutely right. We don't have, you know, if it's gonna snow, it's gonna rain. Have monsoon rain. You know, let's go for it.
But, you know,
it's all half-hearted, and it's, you know, 1 minute is hot. I'm telling you, on Saturday, yesterday, we had the 4 seasons
in the one day.
It was windy, cold, rain, sunshine.
You never had to know.
I was looking.
Exactly. Apart from the snow, I said that. Yeah.
I was looking at our cousins. We have obviously relatives all over the place, but we have significant family in Canada and the US, and a couple of our cousins, our young cousins, graduated, so they had a party. And I was looking at them dancing, and they were outside.
Yeah.
For a minute, I thought, how is it that they're outside at this time of the night?
Yeah.
Because
The
they
summer.
have the
They
weather.
have this summertime. I
And
went
so
out last week, right? The morning started off sun shining. So I put on a light jacket. You know, I said, okay, it's not going to be hot, but it's it's going to be reasonable. I don't need a coat. By mid-morning, I was thinking I could have put on my winter coat with the fur inside, fur around the hood. It was that cold.
Oh wow!
So yeah. Anyway, we should be used to it by now. But hey.
let's not be stereotypically British and blab on about the weather for the entire podcast.
Oh, I want to pose a question to you guys.
Okay.
And I know what my answer is, which is changeable. But anyway, let's hear what you say.
Flip flop. Yeah, go on.
So if someone gave you an option, okay, flip a coin. Heads, you win £1 million. Tails, you win nothing. And you also have a third choice to not flip at all and to get £100,000. What would you do?
Oh, nice. Nice question.
What would you do?
So if the million is you got to flip a coin, and it may happen, it may not.
I've got my answer. I've got my answer.
Go on,
you flip your coin. If it lands on heads, you're £1 million in. Lands on tails, you get nothing. Just don't flip the coin and get 100 grand. What would you do? What would you do, sir?
I think I would. I had the answer, but then I in my head the 100,000 was gonna, it was gonna be repeated, but it's just a one-off 100,000.
Yeah.
Would I take the risk? Yeah, I take the risk.
Okay.
And the reason I would take the risk is because if I didn't get it, I continue living the way I live now financially, but if I got it, then, I could change certainly my kind of economic position if I won the million. If I didn't win the million, I just continue doing what I'm doing. So I think I would take the risk, and I would flip the coin.
Okay. How about you, Sil? Are you still thinking?
No, I'm not still thinking, because I'd take the 100K.
Okay.
And
why?
I think I could definitely make a dent in certain things with 100K.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd want $1 million, but if there was certainty around getting the 100K, I would take it.
Okay.
I would take it. I could pay a couple of bills around.
Take it and run.
Take it and run. And we know the that money doesn't last.
Yeah.
We know it's not necessarily going to go terribly far, but it would make a dent.
Well, yes.
What would you do, Bill? Hayley, sorry.
Well, I kind of hover between the two, because when the question was posed to me, I knew definitely, oh yeah, I'd flip the coin, take my chances, that Smith gene that's going through me. I take a chance, but then that Robin gene that flows through me, with the certainty, I thought, oh, okay, well maybe I would just settle for the 100,000 and make it work for me.
Yeah.
So in honesty, I'm still floating between the two, depending on the mood.
Yeah. And you know what? You should really go with your immediate response. My immediate response was, I take the 100K.
Yeah.
That was my immediate thing. And then as you were talking, I said, I already got my answer. That's what I thought I would do. And then when, oh God, the Smith thing is so strong. When Smith thing started to run through me, I said, why wouldn't I take a chance?
Yeah.
My life, I know my life is ticking along how it's ticking along.
Yeah.
What would significantly change my life if I won $1 million, if I got the million?
Yeah.
100K, could make a dent here and there. But I would take the risk, because if I didn't take the risk, I would keep guessing. I would keep questioning. If only what if?
Well, if you didn't take the risk, and you kept guessing, at least you'd be 100K
Well, it's true.
weeks in. So you could you could have the 100K and then be thinking, oh, I could have won 1 million, but you'd still have your 100K.
100K.
I'm going to go on a little holiday with this 100,000. I'm going to do this with this 100,000.
You know what? And the 100K, you could use that to multiply. So that was
what Hayley was saying.
as I
Make
said,
it work for you.
my immediate thing was 100K. That's what I thought I would do. And then I'm not going to sit on the fence. I'm going to stick with my position. I would take a risk.
Okay.
You see, my immediate thing was I'd take a risk. And then the more I thought,
the Smith came first.
Yeah, the Smith came through first.
Well, let's put it this way. I'd slip you. No, I was going to say I'd slip both of you £100 each, so you wouldn't feel so bad.
Thanks very much. Well, I don't really need your £100 with my million in my back pocket, so
Wow, that's a conundrum, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So we were talking about movie. We completely digressed. We were talking about moving to
Hayley's fault.
To the Caribbean. Could we or couldn't we? I mean, the other thing, and we talked about COVID, the kind of hobbies and the things that we kind of developed during COVID, and I think the two are kind of interlinked, because if we think about what would you do if you moved to the Caribbean? Would you bring those hobbies with you, or are there things that you could do in the Caribbean that could create other interests and so on? So I'm throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think there definitely is, and one of the things that I wanted to dabble with Daddy while I was there was being in the garden and being with nature and planting and stuff. And I well no, I'm not Sandra. I tried a little thing when I came back. It didn't really, because we don't have the climate to kind of like
any excuse.
Sorry, what do you mean you're not Sandra?
Well, scared of an ant, let's put it that way. So you wouldn't be anywhere near the garden.
Let me tell you this. My fond memories of my quality time I spent with my father when we were younger was pottering around the garden with Daddy. And although I didn't get my hands dirty in terms of putting my hand in the soil, but I love
what do you mean by pottering? Pottering in what?
Walking behind.
He would tell me things like, "Oh, go and get me, the shovel."
So you're a helper.
I was his little helper.
Okay.
So I spent lots of time with Daddy in the garden. I mean, I don't like insects, so I wouldn't get my hands in the soil. But I was his little apprentice. I would be helping him, and I used to love watching Daddy kind of plant and so, because Daddy, Daddy's got an eye. He's like quite creative. And he's got, he could plant flowers. He was really good at growing vegetables.
Very neat,
and so on.
attention to detail.
Tidy and paid attention to detail. So those are my fond memories of my childhood. But that was kind of in the garden in England. The garden in the Caribbean is something quite different. And I wouldn't venture out there.
Venture there.
No, I wouldn't venture there. I don't need to do that.
The living things are a bit too big and a bit too
too living.
Yeah, a bit too living.
Up close and personal for me,
I mean, I say that I don't know if I would be able to cope with it. But I like the idea of it. I like the idea of growing and reaping what you sow, and
it's so rewarding.
Yeah,
I personally am not of that hue either, but I love to see how Daddy enjoys that. And, how he enjoys growing, reaping, and saying I grace, and whatever. I love to see all that. But
we enjoy the fruits of his labor as well.
It's from the garden to the plate. That's what I say.
I enjoy that,
and I love that.
Yes. I love that.
Couldn't be involved in the cultivation. We've got some cousins who are in Canada.
Oh, they're fantastic.
And they're fantastic. They love their garden. Me, not so much, but I don't mind the reaping.
Yeah, and I like sitting in a nice garden. I like sitting in a nice space and eating food and stuff
love
like that.
Flowers, love to see the colours.
I'd be prepared to give it a go. I don't know how successful I'd be, but I would give it a go.
Okay.
I can say categorically, I would not give it a go. I'm not even going to go there. And again, even when I was over there last year, I did a bit of pottering with Daddy in the garden.
Yeah,
and we kind of built a step going up. And so it's not that I don't, I do get my hands dirty, but Daddy's close by. So should anything show up, I can scream and run, or he would shoo it away. But so there's just something nice, you know, having him in tow.
Yeah.
Or perhaps him having me in tow.
Yeah.
Indeed,
More to
indeed.
the
More
point,
accurately, yes, more accurately, yeah. Yeah.
There's something about that, but you know, and yeah, as you said, I love a lovely manicure garden, and you know, I love flowers and all those lovely things. But you know, getting my hands dirty,
not so much.
You know, we're talking about hobbies, and I mean, I threw in the gardening and stuff like that. But another thing is that sparked my imagination while I was there. You know, some of the, you know, adding value to what's grown.
Yes.
So, you know, there were vendors who would sell, you know, turmeric powder, or, you know, do the ginger, you know, you just dry it, dehydrate it, and then, you know, you make flour and stuff like that. That I could see myself getting involved in.
I could see you doing that.
And it's sort of like, I mean, if and when I move to the Caribbean, it's going to be a sort of like the twilight years, or, you know, hopefully I'll still be able to enjoy everything. But, you know, you would want to, you know, it has the potential to develop like cottage industries.
Yeah.
You can, you know, make things for yourself and your neighbors, your family, and stuff like that. That interests me. So I would find things to fill my time. I think the Caribbean affords you that.
Yeah, and I think people used to live that way before, isn't it? You know, when we hear about the stories of the past from our parents, you know, they talked about, you know, individuals in the village who would be making certain things. You know, somebody was known for kind of making castor oil, somebody known for making coconut oil, and you know, bread and various other things. So that's how people lived, and as you said, you know, the kind of produces that are grown in the Caribbean, certainly Dominica. I mean, Dominica is such a fertile place.
Yeah.
You know, but this whole thing about diversifying and trying to, you know, use those products to do other things, you know, it doesn't have to just be eaten. And then even if it is eaten, there are parts of the plants and what have you can do other things with. And I think, you know, if we kind of think more creatively about how we can do that, I mean, cottage industries, you know, are popping up everywhere. Why not Dominica?
Yeah. You know, definitely. Make your own chocolate. I'd like to make my own chocolate because I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. Make my own chocolate and sort of like.
You can give that what's it called? That place in Calibishi. You can give them a run for their money.
Indeed.
But I think there are other people making chocolate.
There is.
Things I'd like to do.
So, but the other thing about Dominica, I think I touched on it. The fact that there's not a lot to do, but there's not a lot to do generally there in terms of leisure.
And a social aspect of it.
Yeah, the social aspect of it, particularly as a woman, you know, an older woman. There really isn't that much to do. One could argue you can set up your own stuff and you know, get things going, but you know, what I see there is that, you know, women tend to live their lives around the house.
And
get an age, and that wouldn't work for me.
No,
I think, and I mean, certainly when I spent that the last time I went there and I spent this 3 months there, I could absolutely see that, because particularly if you live in the countryside, and because getting around, Dominica's not a big place, but getting around is a challenge. So, you know, there were other people who were friends of mine who were on island, right? But I couldn't see myself, you know, just popping down to see whoever, let's say in some other part of the island. I mean, you actually have to create a whole kind of itinerary around it. I find. And I mean, okay, fair enough. I know, you know, people take buses and they go here, but it's always predicated on when the buses are coming back, you know, what time it's leaving. You know, sometimes the terrain can be quite difficult to navigate. So all those things for me shrunk my life. You know, if I were living nearer to the town, there is a lot more going on. Well, I say that, but it's usually bars, and sometimes they may have various events going on and so on. But when you live in the country, the interesting thing is when you go to town, you're dying to get back to the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like, which is crazy, but you just want to get out of the town. Because you'll head back to the country. The terrain is beautiful. It's much fresher.
Yeah.
But it's limited in terms of things to do. So
You speaking this, it's reminding me of people who live in this country, in the UK,
yeah,
the country, and the countrysides, and they talk about buses, irregular bus service, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think because we live in London, and I mean, I don't know if I would call London a 24/7 city, but maybe it is more so now. But everything is accessible. There is a lot, and everything is more.
Oh, you're overstimulated. One could argue.
Yeah, but that is because we live in a city in the UK. If we lived in a village in the UK, we would probably have the same level of concern and that sort of thing.
Yep.
But what we're actually talking about is central London, because where we live, I mean, I don't think it's 24/7, city, and things shut down at a certain time.
I don't need a 24/7.
We know central London is accessible.
Yes.
We know that we can, we know that the transport links are there. So even if we want, where we live isn't as busy, we can jump on the train and we can get into London, relatively quickly. So yeah, in a way you can't in the Caribbean. Yeah. First of all, the buses stop running by 5 o'clock. I mean, you have to be back in the village, because you're
5 o'clock earlier than that.
Perhaps a bit earlier, but you're not going to get the bus from town, taking you back at whatever time. And just a little the joke. It wasn't a joke, actually. It was quite scary, quite harrowing at the time. When Syl and I were there, and our car broke down, and we were having fun in town with people, and we left a little bit too late, because we said we wanted to leave before the darkness came upon us, because we know what it's like when it's dark, having to navigate the roads. So we were just leaving town, and the car broke down. And
I was with you as well, wasn't she?
Naya was with us at the time, yeah. It was still daylight, but the sun was beginning to set. So in the Caribbean, as soon as you think about it, it's suddenly dark. But what was wonderful about that experience was that the car broke down, and then people, you just didn't think that anyone was going to kind of, come out of wherever. People coming out asking us, are we okay? People stopping their cars. Everyone had an antidote that they wanted to give us about why the car broke down. But eventually, to cut a long story short, a guy towed our car, complete stranger, towed our car to a garage.
Did somebody ask you if you were Mr. Fodd's daughters?
Oh, yes.
Yes, but by that stage there was a crowd around us anyway. So they sort of asked us, and then they saw that people were dealing with us, so they moved on. But yeah, it shows you how small the island is. Yeah, I mean,
and I thought that was wonderful. They recognized us, and they as our dad's daughters. And then, but the upshot of that is that people have time for you. A guy stopped. He arranged a tow to the garage for us. And then he arranged a lift back to the village. Yeah. And it was like, God, that would never happen here.
And I mean, I have a full appreciation of that, because when I lived in Dominica, and I would always, prior to going, I was thinking, but they haven't got AA there. They haven't got RAC. What if something happens? If something happens, there's always someone who's stopped to help you.
Yeah,
that is the beauty of it. So I'm never afraid or feeling, unlike Sandra and Naya, who were, as soon as they saw the darkness, they started getting all the heebie-jeebies. But for me, there's always someone who's prepared to help you, and I've had quite a few scrapes in Dominica where people will just help you, because that is part of their nature.
Culture, yeah.
And I mean, you're not being naive and thinking, oh yeah, everybody's, because there are sinister characters, like there's sinister characters anywhere.
Yes.
By and large, people are prepared to help.
Yep. Definitely.
Yeah.
On another day, we'll tell you what happened many years ago when we broke down in another part of Dominica, but we'll tell you that another day. Because that is absolutely hilarious how that happened. Don't get it twisted. We're not always breaking down.
Well,
You have
Sometimes
to
these
ask the
things
word.
happen. Sometimes these things happen. Oh,
so
God.
guys, before we go,
Mhm.
let me just ask a question, another question.
Oh, another one.
Oh, you're
Another
full of them
question.
today, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Any more money ones?
No.
Okay. All right.
No. This one is a bit more kind of like a bit deeper.
Okay.
What would you tell, what message or what would you say to your younger self, armed with what you know now, your life experiences, to make your younger, or to help your younger self on her life journey? Is there anything that you would say to yourself 30 years ago, 40 years ago?
I would say to myself, sorry, should I go first?
Yeah. Go on.
I would say to myself, as much as possible, don't try not to attach an outcome to, your experience or the things that you're going through in life, based on how you want the outcome to look. Just go through life, and life has a way of taking you to where you need to be. Life has a way of knowing exactly what you need at any given point in time, and trust the journey.
Okay. So just gently ease into your life, and yeah, I hear you. What about you, Sil?
Well, it's interesting because I hadn't really thought of it before. Usually there are things like you'd say things like, don't worry, it'll all work itself out in the end, and people say those kind of things. I would say to my younger self, be more open-eyed to people who can teach you things.
Okay.
Be more open to mentorship. Be more open to the wisdoms of older folk. Although I don't think I have absolutely dismissed, guidance and counsel from older people. But when I think about the stage I'm at my life now, that's what I try to provide for younger people I have connection with. And I wish I had more of that when I was younger.
Okay.
So
Okay.
But I would say that I probably should have or could have sought out more of that.
Okay. And do you
help me on my journey?
I don't know what I'd say to my younger self, actually.
You asked the question and you don't know what you're going to say?
Well, if you allow me to finish, I was actually going to go on to say something.
Beg your pardon.
But one of the things I would say to myself, my younger self, is to challenge myself more. Challenge myself. I mean, I feel that I've had a blessed existence to a large extent, and I mean, in previous chats that we've had, where I've kind of said that I'm the youngest I was the youngest of 4, so there weren't that many expectations. I wasn't burdened with expectations. I was just allowed to be who I was. I was accepted regardless. One of the things I would say to my younger self is challenge yourself. You can do it. Challenge yourself.
Well, maybe a kind of a overarching closure. I would say it's never too late to experience things, and I think once we're on this journey called life, whether you open yourself up to mentorship and what have you at the age of 10 or the age of, I won't say your age, I mean, it's still there.
Please don't.
Yeah, I find it hard to say her age, actually. There are still people who will come into your path and
yes,
who's going to sort of show you things and
absolutely, you're right.
things. And there's always going to be people,
and people who are younger too.
Yeah, younger and older. You know, there will be
Mhm.
people older than you. There'll always be people younger than you. Just be
Yes.
open to it.
Yes.
And I think in your case, Pearls, I think, you know, the whole thing around challenge,
Mm.
and you know, sometimes you think you're not challenging yourself, because when you reflect or you look back, you're not looking at the context in which you existed at that point. You kind of bypass all of that. But I think we all have it in us to you know, to be anything and do anything at any point in our life, you know, and you know, if that's what you feel your younger self should have done, challenge yourself. Well, challenge yourself now. Why not?
Yeah.
But
And I mean, that's assuming that I haven't challenged myself, because it goes
yeah,
back to what you
exactly.
said. The outcome doesn't necessarily determine the work
process.
into it, the process.
Yeah,
You know, the fact that the outcome may appear to have been easy and seamless doesn't mean to say that the challenge wasn't there.
Mhm.
exactly.
You know, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Lovely note to end
Beautiful.
on.
All right, well, it's another wrap, ladies, and it's been an absolute pleasure as usual. Do check us out on YouTube. This will also be on the audio will be on my Mixcloud account, which we'll also provide the link for in the show notes. But yeah, it's been a blast.
Indeed.
What I will say is I'm bereft of music still today. What's going on, man?
Oh gosh, we've done it again, haven't we?
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to finish off on some music, but you see, when we get carried away,
We just keep going.
we will just keep going. Right. So say your goodbye, ladies.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. It's been nice catching up.
Peace out.